We'll take a break about halfway through. Our goal is to go slow enough to allow people to absorb, not so slow that you get bored. And we may have to incorporate some different tools to help us move through the process because all of you are here. One of the tools you will have at your disposal is you'll see a stack of 3x5 cards on every table. We will be using those to collect questions. So as we go through each section, we're going to stop and give you an opportunity to ask your questions. So mostly we're going to ask you to wait until we've sort of done our little narrative shtick and then give time for people to raise their hand and ask specific questions. If you have a question you don't want to ask in front of all of your friends and family, write it down. If we don't have enough time and we have to get moving, write your question down, because the plan is then we'll collect all those and we'll produce sort of an FAQ and post it on the website. So none of your questions will need to be missed. The only thing we will do is if your question is moving into a very topic-specific area, very specific maybe to the work that you do, we may put that in our parking lot, or we may ask you to have that conversation one-on-one with a community building manager that oversees that focus area. Okay? Is that a deal? So we'll get started. Can everyone hear me? Jean, you're my tester in the back. Okay. We did turn the heat down so that no one can get so comfy that they get nappish. And I have people in the room that I'll be watching. Sort of my test canaries. If your eyes start to go like this, well, no, we need to do something different. So we're going to do a few things this morning. I'm going to briefly touch on our overview of our priorities. We're going to go through the RFP piece by piece, and I think most of you read the timeline. We'll go through all the requirements, updates and training kinds of information. So I'm sure all of you have seen this. It's in the front section of each of the RFP documents. This is our shorthand version of United Way priorities. We want kids to start strong. That's our early childhood priorities. We want young people to grow strong, help them reach their potential. And then we want families to stay strong. And that has to do with a variety of things: financial stability, health, and independence for older adults. Okay, my job is to remember that I have to come back and move my slide forward because I'll start walking on the room. These are our 5 focus area goals. Just as a reminder, the board endorsed those community level goals back in March of this year. Everything we do in the community in partnership with you as funded partners, but also in a lot of the other projects and collaborations that we participate in, are intended to support the achievement of these high-level community goals. Most of you know us. We'll introduce ourselves as we go throughout the day. If you have specific questions for any of us, don't hesitate to let us know. And also you can use those 3x5 cards and write our name on the card. What you see at the bottom is accountability review questions. So when we talk about due diligence documents, stuff like that, those questions can come to me. Anything else my team doesn't want to answer, they put in the other category, and that's also me. So if they look at you and go, no, go talk to Leslie. But I am available to any of you to answer your questions as well. But you'll get the most effective answers about focus area specific stuff when you talk to the community building manager responsible for that area. These are our timelines, our big deadlines, which I know most of you have etched in your brain at this point. We did set a deadline for the last day for technical assistance. This means, sort of intensive conversations about, I have questions about how to respond to this part of the RFP, okay? This is not about I'm trying to upload stuff and I can't get in, okay? If you have technical software uploading in the database kinds of questions, we're going to respond to you all the way up to the end. But we are going to set an end point to having sort of those in-depth strategic conversations about how you're responding to the RFP. By the 7th, looking at that last week, you should be writing and finishing, not talking to us about what if I did, okay? The other thing to note, and we put it in the RFP documents, is on January 3rd and 4th, we will be moving. So we will be very hard to find. So in reality, you probably want to be done talking with us by the 1st of the year, okay? We need to be ready to rock and roll at that point. We'll look at how we can make sure that if you have a crisis on January 3rd and 4th, you know how to get a hold of us. But it's hard for us to know what those couple of days will look like, other than we'll be toting boxes and it will be cold. The solutions team, this is the same process we used last time. Obviously, they have more criteria to work with this time than they did last time. We tend to work with small groups of volunteers, 3 to 4 people, reading a smaller group of proposals so they can go in depth. We've tried to keep the folks pretty consistent, so if they looked at your mid-year renewals last year, they're probably going to look at your proposals this year, okay? And then the large group comes together to share their insights and to make recommendations, and staff guide the volunteers all along the process. There is a scoring tool that's on the website, right? Yes. My team says yes. I forget. The scoring tool is out on the website, so you know.
I just thought I'd mention, I tried to access the scoring tool, and it wouldn't open in a way that I could read. It was, so I don't know if there's a problem or not, but I couldn't open it.
It might be the version, because we use 2007. If you have a lower version of Microsoft Office.
I don't. I have 2007.
We'll check it. Okay. We'll check it and make sure that opens. If any of you have had any other problems opening documents, let us know. But you should be able to both, when you look at the RFP, we've told you how many points the section gets, and we've given you the scoring tool to show you the kinds of questions that the volunteers will be looking at as they're reading and reviewing your proposal. So hopefully giving you some guidance about what those sections should look like. And the solutions teams will be the ones to recommend award amounts and types of funding. You noticed in your RFP document that we're proposing to have 2 types of funding awards this time around. We've learned a lot in the last 3 years. I hope you've seen us learn, but we'll tell you that we've learned, even if you don't think you've seen us learn. And that some of the work that you do is very transactional, and it is not realistic to say to someone who is offering a senior a ride, tell us how their life has been fundamentally changed by getting a ride from you. So we're looking at community basics and outcome funding. Community basics funding would be very focused on more transactional services. Outcome funding is the same funding we've offered the last 3 years. The primary difference to you is the kind of reporting that you would do. You would not have an extensive logic model if you're offering community basics services. So we've tried to outline how we might use those 2 types of funding. In terms of significance to the whole, we don't care whether you get outcome funding or community basics funding. You are an important part of the pie. But what we're continuing to try and look at is what is reasonable and useful in terms of reporting and process based on the kind of work that you do as an organization. So that's the intent of the funding, truly. There's no other intention but to balance the work and the reporting methodology with the kind of work that you do. If you are an agency that works all the way from a transaction, I give a ride, Do I provide case management services? So you provide all along that continuum. You will not get community basics funding, even if part of the work you do is sort of transactional. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. And you don't decide that, and you don't tell us which one you want. That will be decided as part of the review process. Do not worry about that. Do not think that you have to somehow incorporate that into the way that you write your proposal. Okay? Don't worry about it. We just wanted to give you a heads up that this will be part of the strategy. So, basic, big picture questions, anything you want me to address right now?
Leslie, along the lines of what you were just saying, if you have a program, two different programs go and they serve completely different populations, you're still just getting funding under one of those jobs, not both.
You know, we wouldn't split your funding between basics funding and outcome funding. Not at all. Go ahead.
Does that refer to agency or strategy?
It would probably refer primarily, we would start with the agency, because with HACAP, you're doing a variety of things. On the other hand, because you're the food reservoir, what makes most sense for your reporting and accountability? Those are the questions that we'll weigh. But the food reservoir also addresses a system, so it might, that might warrant outcome reporting. But that starts to get very specific, and I think, one, don't worry about it, okay? We told you because we want you to know, because if at the end of the process you get a letter that says, hooray, you get community basics funding, we don't want you to say to us, what? Okay? But it does not affect how you write. You write your proposal, period. It will not affect how you get paid. It will not, there's no ceiling for community basics funding, so it's not that you can only get $50,000 if you're getting community basics funding. That's not how it works. Okay?
You mentioned the scoring tool on the website. Is that the same as what I found in the RFP?
That looks like our scoring tool. Okay. Anything else? All right, we're going to move on.